video just turned off. Oh well, I will go over and take care of it in a minute. So I am so glad that you are here, and I am hoping that this is just the first of many occasions when we can get together. 1 out of every 4 people has a disability, and the majority of these are mental and intellectual disabilities. What that means is that the disability is not always visible. You can't tell, which is the key difficulty when working with this population. Confusion and stress can cause inappropriate and confusing behaviors. And there have been in the news of late in which a situation probably could have been avoided or at least had a better outcome if there had been good communication and a plan of action. And so what we want to do is start talking in Grace Harbor on how to have that communication, how to work together. So, if you are a first responder, we want to help you help them. In an emergency situation, to avoid unnecessary stress and escalation, and have positive outcomes. Today we have a panel of those who work with people with developmental disabilities, family members, self-advocates, police officers, and firefighters. We are hoping that this informal discussion that we share today will help us get to know each other a little bit better and also can lead to future conversations. So I would like to introduce our panel to you. Way down at the end, we have Gabe Tarnowski from the Aberdeen Police Department. We have Lena Cadwell, the Behavioral Health Navigator for Hoquiam, Aberdeen, and Cosmopolis Police Departments. We have Mitch Housden, sorry about that, from the Aberdeen Fire Department, and the empty seat will be filled. I would hope he's on his way right now. And that seat goes to David Brewer from South Beach Fire Department. Next to him, we have Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan, I'm going to mess up your name. Shower, thank you. Jonathan Shower is a self-advocate, and he is also a volunteer fireman. We have Isaac Talbot, who is a self-advocate. We have Bob Van Warner, who is both a self-advocate and a parent. And we have Mindy Spurline, who is a parent. And then we have from the ARC of Washington, Stacy Dim, who is the executive director. And then our very own executive director, Jeff Meeks, from the ARC at Grace Harbor. So before we get started, I am hoping I can do this really, really quickly. Excuse me, because the thingy turned off. I have a brief video to show you, so give me 1 moment.
I guess while Teresa's working on that, I'd like to just thank everybody for coming, because this has been something that's been on my list of things to do for the last 20 years. I've been the director here for the last 13 years, and I was on the board for a few years before that. And fostering communications between advocates and people with disabilities and local law enforcement and first responders is something that I consider really important. There have been, all of you watch the news, there have been incidents in the past where things potentially could have been avoided. And I think that having these conversations before those things happen is super important, just because it's easier to have these conversations when there isn't a whole bunch of emotion and heat behind them.
All right, the video at the beginning, there is no sound. So if you don't hear anything, it's okay, it's coming.
This is my family, Kathy Depew, Crystal Depew, Diamond Depew. We live in the city limits of Aberdeen.
Okay, I'm Donette Johnson. This is Christopher Uriel. We live in Aberdeen. We live in Ocean Shores. We wanted to say that we're really grateful for the first responders. For us, they're right down the road.
If you would have told me ahead of time what would be in the future, I would have never imagined. Daniel has surpassed so many things that we would have never anticipated. That's the exciting part. The hard part is that there may always be challenges because his brain functions differently than ours. And so knowing that we will probably have challenges and he will have challenges that we need to walk beside him to overcome those challenges.
With kids with disabilities, it can be challenging. With Christopher, he doesn't talk much. He can, but he doesn't have understanding. And they can ask him a question, he may or may not be able to answer it. He has problems with his legs, and they get sore. But for us, we've been lucky with them being right down the road. Right? Like I said, he doesn't talk a lot. He gets nervous. He's got a lot of anxiety. But one thing with Christopher too is if he gets upset, you got to be careful. If he's in a lot of pain, because he doesn't know his own strength, and he can't handle pain very well, especially if it's really bad.
Has a lot of sensory issues with that. Our neighbor, which is a consistent noisemaker, she doesn't like to go outside without us. She doesn't like bright lights, so if you go in her room, you'll see that she has very dim lights. So that's another preparation. Bring a flashlight. She can hear, she can speak as well. However, if you're expecting a response, it's going to take a while. It's a house like any other house. We haven't done any special modifications or anything like that.
Yeah. What do you think if they were to come to our house for you? What would you want to think? If they're there to help you, all right? You just want to talk slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure that you understand what they're saying. Yeah.
The first thing that we would love for every responder to consider is our home is your home if we need your help. So don't think that you have to step at the front door, come in, do whatever you need to do to get it done. We're fine with it.
We have a son, age 41, who has Down syndrome. And I just want first responders to know that it's important to have compassion and have a charitable interpretation over when incidents happen with people with developmental disabilities, to approach them with the same kindness and respect that they would hope for themselves to receive. Having a person in our life with special needs has its challenges, but it also has its blessings. And I hope that they would get to know each person as an individual that they are.
So we got Diamond as beginning as a pet. She has turned into the dog that we expected. She definitely has the bond in the family that we're looking for. However, in public settings, which we're constantly exposing to her even today, she gives Crystal confidence that she has never had before. We've been shopping in the store before with Crystal in charge of the dog. We got separated, didn't realize Crystal and the dog fell behind, and turned around, we're having a panic moment, and sure enough, they're both acting perfectly. Diamond's waiting with Crystal, there's no expectation I need to go forward. Crystal's waiting patiently, till they can move forward because it was really crowded. As soon as it cleared up, they walked confidently straight to us. No freak out on the face of the dog or Crystal.
There.
Appreciate what all the law enforcement and ambulance and fire people do for our communities. We need you, we appreciate you, and we thank you.
All right.
And God bless them for everything that they do. Because without them, what do you do? It's the hospital and you're the one driving, and if it's an emergency, you can get pulled over for that one. But yeah, for us, we're glad that they're really close and that they're able to get to us quickly. Right? Yeah. But yeah, we're just really grateful for them and all that they do. I mean, it takes special people to do it. Not everybody can be a first responder. It takes patience, courage, and a lot of understanding, a lot of patience, huh? Yeah. What do you want to say? You want to say thank you for them, or?
Thank you.
And you appreciate them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we had the names. David Euler snuck in while we were showing the video, so I wanted to introduce him. He is from the South Beach Fire Department also. So I am going to ask some questions of our panel, and then afterwards I will give you all a chance if you have any questions for anybody up on our panel. So the first question I would like to ask, and whoever would like to answer this, what is a developmental disability?
So the state of Washington actually has a definition that I don't know is the correct medical definition, but it's a disability that happens before you turn 18. It's expected to last throughout your life and causes significant hindrance on your ability to function, whether it's a cognitive delay or some sort of sensory issue goes all in the category of disability. So there's a saying among doctors that once you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Everybody is different. So, but the general sense is that quite often, my son included, if you were to see some of his behaviors, some of his quirks, it might look like something else. It might look like potentially a drug thing. So I guess it's just important to keep an open mind when you encounter somebody that may have a developmental disability.
And I'll just add to that, I'm a sibling, my sister had developmental disabilities. Most people think of developmental disability, someone with Down syndrome. Most people have known someone with Down syndrome. But it also includes people with cerebral palsy, people with autism, and people with other neurological conditions. Most children are diagnosed with a developmental disability early on. A good portion of people are diagnosed at birth or shortly after birth. Some people it takes a little bit longer, usually in that category of autism. They take up to about 7 or 8 years of age. And you would think if you know somebody in each of those categories, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and autism, they have nothing in common, right? But as Jeff said, the key is that this manifests usually pretty early in childhood. It's developmental because it happens during your developmental years. And the functional that's something that's important to keep in mind.
Okay. My next question is actually directed at parents and our self-advocates. What about TD makes life different? You all can't speak at once, please take turns.
I mean, DDA, yeah, this is new to me, so, yeah. This,
And
so,
Alrighty, would anybody like to add to that?
what was what?
What makes life different with DD?
Well, for me, since I've had disabilities since I was born, so I don't know where, like, oh, I don't know what's going on, you know. People ask me, you know, if I work and I don't work, I say I have a disability. And they look at me like you know, like I'm different. Oh, you should be able to work. Well, I tried that and it didn't work. So people don't see my disability because it's so hidden, because I'm so normal. So, like, you know, I guess that's what makes it different for me. In a way.
Isaac, what's unique about you? What's really unique about you that's different from other people?
Well, I have what we call a photographic memory. I have a really good memory. So I can remember, like, really good things. Like, I remember when my grandma died, April 25th, 2003, at 11:45 a.m., which was on a Thursday. I was in 8th grade. So I can remember really good, I have really great memory. So I guess that's what makes me unique in that way. So,
And sometimes that really works to his advantage, so he's on our board of directors, and he's the institutional member. Jeff forgets that he has an appointment next Thursday, Isaac's going to
that's right.
And what Jeff said, I have the same kind of disability that he does, where I was born with it. And I have to have people repeat a couple times to me of what they want me to do.
I think knowing that persons with developmental disabilities, they're always gonna need support, and it's gonna vary from person to person. Daniel, as I said in the video, he has surpassed what we thought he would ever be able to do. And I think maybe as first responders, law enforcement, try not to put our people in a box. Realize that they may have more going on than is visible. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna put on my mom hat instead of the behavioral health navigator hat, because I'm the mother of a 36-year-old Down syndrome man who is cognitively between 3 and 5 years old, nonverbal, and has a diagnosis of schizophrenia and early onset dementia. So, unlike Daniel's story, we've got a lot more challenges in our house, right? And so, just like children that are on, and adults on the autism spectrum, everything is vastly different from person to person. That holds true for folks with Down syndrome as well. Don't put them in a box, they're not all the same. There's extra behaviors that could be possible there, and it makes things very challenging. And so, you see a meltdown out in public, you know, instead of staring and videotaping at Walmart, ask them to help.
Okay, so this is the last question for all of you, and then we'll get to the other end of the table. What would you like first responders to know?
And I'll just add too, my sister had developmental disabilities, she also had Down syndrome, a little bit of I grew up, she liked to elope when she was little, and we had police interactions a lot because she would leave the house when nobody was looking. And we eventually grew up with bells on all the doors, and now as a sibling, I don't live with my sister for many, many years. I still have that. I have the alarm system that has a little bell when everybody goes out because you get so used to that. And I think as family members, you start to naturalize a person's disability, and sometimes you don't think as much about what happens when you have interactions with police or ambulance or fire in a medical condition. A lot of people with developmental disabilities experience what's called diagnostic overshadowing. So they may have a medical condition, but they can't communicate that. My sister was nonverbal, and one day she just fainted out of the blue, and it turned out her gallbladder had exploded. But people, all they saw was her Down syndrome, and didn't spend a lot of time trying to sort it out until we could get to the hospital and figure out what could happen. So I think it's important to be aware that sometimes we make assumptions about a person's disability, attributing to whatever's going on in that situation. She would also have moments where she was just highly stubborn. And as a sibling, you can imagine, we all had low tolerance for that. She might just decide she's done and sit down on the sidewalk and we're not gonna go anywhere. And there's a crowd of people, maybe it's at the fair, and people are looking at you, and there's a lot of anxiety that family members experience. So I think as a first responder, I would first be alerted to this overshadowing piece, where you have to be an investigator often, especially for someone who doesn't speak or can't tell you what's going on. You can listen carefully to the family. They usually know what's triggered that person or what's happening behaviorally. And they have a lot of good tips and clues about how to help. They're usually asking for your help. And I think it's important to know that it takes time. And I'm very sensitive to the fact that first responders that I talk with will say, I'm here, I got a lot of people, I got help during the day, I'm here, I got to diagnose and contain the situation quickly, I don't have time. And that's usually where something goes wrong. Is your ability to either call in other support people within your departments that do have time, an ability to sort out families, also in a little bit of crisis, because families can get very strained by the level of care that's required of them. And just to be an investigator at all times aware of that situation if you can, rather than the instinct to come in and control it or contain it.
Anybody else?
I guess I'd add one other thing, this could maybe be a little bit oversimplified, knowing Dark's phone number. We have staff that know, not everybody with a developmental disability is our, but we know a good cross-section of them. It's quite often or quite possible that we might have some insights that might help law enforcement or other first responders when they're dealing with an unexpected situation.
All right, well, let's switch to the other end of the table. What do you want to know from us?
I'll say those little moments inside the big moment. So oftentimes we get called for a big moment, right? Something has changed, something is off baseline, something is not working the way it's supposed to work. If you can help us understand what are the little moments that led up to that, what are the little moments that we need to understand, what are the little ways that we need to communicate. So it could be as simple as maybe creating an environment that's going to help that communication happen. It could be as simple as, hey, can we just back off for about 30 seconds and you can back right over here, or we can just dim the lights, maybe slow everything down, take some noise out of the moment. So help us with those little moments.
Anybody else?
Really to build on that is, the caregivers, patients, you guys are going to be the greatest historian of what's going on. So we show up, we might have 3 to 5 people show up with us. That could be overwhelming for a lot of patients that we're seeing. So letting us know what triggers that patient, what's going to be the best course of action for treatment, those type of things in the medical history are going to be really important for us to find out. And certainly those little moments that happen to that incident. So try and be patient with us. We want to help the patient best we can. You guys would be the best people to do that for us.
And I'll pop on real quick. I've been in my role as the behavioral health navigator with the police departments here for about 3.5 years now. One thing that I've tried to do with building a relationship with both the ARC and with Paula Housing is identify people's needs beforehand. Almost like we do with folks that have dementia and Alzheimer's, we create a profile, just a little guide of who that person is. That way we can inform our officers before they have to show up to a crisis. So if your child has autism and sirens and lights would escalate rather than de-escalate a situation, being aware of those little tiny nuanced things, very important. And if you would love to share anything with me, you're more than welcome to reach out, and we can help educate our officers before they ever have to go to your house.
You know, what Delaney was saying, if we are aware of the situation that would trigger an individual, we can log that in all of our notes for that individual. Most of the time we run the person or associations with them prior to responding. Like, if lights set somebody off, we know we're not gonna run code unless we need to, right, whether lights and sirens. But we can also shut them down prior to arriving in the general area.
Thank you.
So one of the things that was really helpful in my family was I have a childhood friend who's recently retired from the sheriff's department. He came to our house a couple of times and sort of role played the traffic stop. So what do you do, Colin, if you get a traffic stop? And these are the questions I would ask him, just going through a traffic stop scenario so that he knew what to expect, wouldn't go wrong. And he said it was right on point.
So, well, I think you basically answered this question, but I'm still gonna ask it because you hear something a little different in it. How can we help you help us?
I love the idea of interacting outside of an emergency, right? So if there are barbecues, blood pressure checks, you name it, right? Any opportunity that we can do to kind of associate, understand, and get a connection ahead of the moment when we are rolling in at 3 in the morning and we are super loud and we are, you know, moving people aside to get to what we need to do. I would love any chance that you all have to come to those events and to help meet us in a time when we can just have fun. We can just have a really positive interaction so that those moments aren't nearly as scary. And believe me, they're still going to be scary, but take a little bit of that edge off by having that connection ahead of time.
If you have to call 911 for any, we have to show up. It's okay to meet us outside and give us that kind of rundown of what's going on, rather than us going in there and overwhelming the patient even more. So just keep that in mind. You know, we're more than happy to have you guys come outside, talk to us real quick, remove us from the situation, and then we can go and approach have a little bit better understanding of what's going on and how to properly treat that patient. You know, kind of covered every patient's different, so you guys are the best historians, so please help us help you.
I know one thing our dear friend Stephen Holmes and I used to do would have lunch with some of his folks and miss him dearly. And so reach out to me if you have a family member who wants to go to lunch or just have a coffee or something, and just, you know, building those development relationships outside of a crisis is so important because you see faces and you're at ease when someone you trust is in a crisis situation with you. You know, reduce that anxiety.
Like, I agree with Dave with the blood pressure checks and that kind of events. People like with me up in this building, him and I see a lot of people out in our area that has disability. How do you say that? Someone like don't has.
So just having complications with life.
Like someone who goes in at AFib and stuff, that we know what we can do to help him out, help people out like that.
I agree with pretty much everybody, what they said here. One thing our job to do is get the facts right. And stepping outside to separate us from causing an escalation is greater than getting all the facts right at that moment that we need to inside as long as everybody's safe. Our job is to make everybody safe. We want to make sure we continue to keep everybody safe through and get the facts. Most of the time we're there to help you guys. We also can be scary. And we're also scared at the same time. So, okay?
And most of the time underneath it all, we're just people just like you. We make mistakes, we want to learn, we want to try to be better in all those moments. So help us help you try to be better with all of our community members.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to run the mic around if any of you have questions for anybody on our panel. And I saw, Carol, you had your hand up.
I used to be a canine handler for search and rescue. I used to be a canine handler for search and rescue, and we had several call-outs where we had someone with disabilities. And one thing I can say, and I observed quite a bit, was all the firefighters and police officers were so excited and so eager to help that they all rush in. And the person is surrounded, they're already scared and afraid. They're exhibiting behavior, there could be from onset of hypothermia going on, and they're already spiraling downward. And if everybody would just take a moment, step back, and what a difference it makes. We had a 38-year-old woman that was found only 250 feet from her home, and she was in dense brush and trees with nothing but a diaper and a shirt on, and she spent 24 hours outdoors. We found her that morning at 10 a.m. and immediately knew something was wrong by her condition. She was sticking sticks into her boots. She had cowboy boots, the diaper, and the shirt on, and that's it. She was terrified, and she was nonverbal at that point. She loved dogs, which we didn't know. Luckily, we had sense enough. We backed everybody away, gave her a moment. We sat down at her level, brought the dog in. The dog is a wonderful tool, senses distress with the individual, and the dog laid next to her. She immediately started stroking the dog, and we just saw her body completely release. We were able to remove her boots and address her wounds. We got her warm, and we were able to then calmly, carefully get her into the ambulance and get to the aid. So just an FYI, you know, big, strong, strapping guys, you're running in, you want to help. Sometimes you got to back off and just have one individual, or sometimes a woman, because it makes a big difference.
Hey, anybody else?
Well, I have a lot of stories and I'm not going to tell them all to you for sure. But I think this is the biggest one. I look pretty normal. I'm completely blind. And it just happened a few years ago. And so for me to acclimate to that is driving me nuts. To my son to my right, he cannot handle any kind of stress, any kind of raised voice, any kind of dog or cat, because it was what was called a shaken baby syndrome when he was an infant. He's now 42, but those memories never go away. That post-traumatic stress disorder, as it's called now, and a TBI, I think that's it, traumatic brain injury, yeah, we don't say it, anyway. That history has to be there. Or you can't figure out what in the heck is going on. The other thing is that in a lot of my children, and this is one of them right here, you will see a variety of issues. And what are they diagnosed with? Maybe just one of them, maybe all of them, but they coexist. And they have an impact one on the other. See a lot of twitching going I'm about ready to call the sheriff's department for help. Often I stop the log truck drivers and I send them help. But I walk that way, and here's that person, and I'm not gonna use all the words. Yeah, yay. And the neighbor is outside with his sidearm. Don't say the word, got it? Drawn. Because this intruder, who was about 14 then, won't answer him. In today's world, that would have been a disaster. If the neighbor, if they had been, if we had known them, they would have realized who it was. I wasn't reaching out back then. I was too busy and I was too protective. And now I make it clear that I can't see who you are. I don't use the cane because I always am with somebody because I don't like to look vulnerable. The three of us look like William Lincoln and Nod walking down the street by ourselves, not safe. Anyway, then the other one will tell you things that happened from 2005 or about 1995 when he was born. And if you say, who's your mother, you might get a multitude of answers because of a series of foster homes. Even though he's been with me for 37 years, every day he thanks me that I'm his mom. We don't get over those old injuries. We are all walking wounded. When we go out of here today, you hold your head high. We are all walking wounded with things that have happened to us. Anyway, there was, he was out with one of his persons checking into the community, and there was a vehicle accident. It just so happens that his person is deaf, and she lip reads, and she's excellent. But when the officer arrived, the area was so traumatic that there was no opportunity for the officer to realize that she was deaf, and this one, if you ask him anything, you're going to get sound from La La Land. And so it was a disaster. And the aide with him had her card saying, I am deaf, I will read your lips. But in the moment, it was difficult. That goes along with we have to know each other. Like someone up there said, come to the barbecues, come to the meetings, come to whatever there is, and get to know us as individuals. So that traffic accident worked out fine. Now I'll tell you one that just happened a couple weeks ago, and then I'll be quiet. There was another accident, minor. It just so happened that the Abilene Police Department policeman is going to be one of my grandsons pretty soon, because he's marrying my granddaughter. So when the person that was with Kenny started to say, well, this is, and Colby said, it's okay, I know Kenny. Kenny was going to be my uncle. So peaceful, so easy. We're asking for the impossible. We can't all know each other. But as a parent, I just ask you to stand back, like everybody said. Stand back and wait. See what happens. See what those triggers are. The other thing, one last thing. There's a whole crowd of people that are now over the age of 50, but they're still walking the streets. Many of them were my foster children, some are my adopted children. Some of you know my name because my sons live in your facilities. That's not all my kids. But they're the missing batch of people who didn't get any of the services that we're able to give now. And they're lost out there on the streets. And the only people who can deal with them are the first responders. And I understand, the parents who do understand. But we've got to do better. And we are doing better. And I thank all of you for coming. Thank you for coming and listening to the parents.
Would you all ever want to jump in? Go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in, because I always do. When I moved from Elma to Hoquiam 3 years ago, the first thing I did after putting video cameras on my doors, my stove, and the main rooms of the house is I took my son Taylor, my Down syndrome son, to every single neighbor on our block and around a few corners. I introduced him and said he loves to elope. He has wanderlust. He'll go on walkabouts, and if you see him, call me at the police department or walking back to our house. And yes, our house is the blue and yellow house on 2nd Street in Hoquiam for Down syndrome awareness, not Aberdeen High School. Just throwing that out there. But although I serve Aberdeen as well. But it is very important to know your neighbors when you have children with special needs, because they are the people who are going to be a part of your support group, not just relying on your first responders to just show up and not know. So if you want to go on a walkabout and meet some neighbors and you have any type of shyness or anything and you want to partner in that, I would be happy to do that with you. Because the next day after doing this, Taylor left and went next door to Miss Cookie's house, let himself in and said, "Hi, where's Mommy?" And we formed a friendship. So it's really important to know your neighbors. I mean, we're a community here, we're a small community, and it's not impossible to get out there and meet and greet, and I'm happy to facilitate relationships and build your support team.
Along that theme of getting to know your neighbors and being familiar with the community, I think one of the reasons that first responders in Grace Harbor have such a track record of success is because of your involvement with organizations such as Special Olympics. Every time I go to a Special Olympics event, I see great turnout from law enforcement and other first responders. So I think that that's super important, and carrying that forward and scaling that out is the key.
So my name is Lisa Schreier. I run the Grace Harbor EMS and Trauma Care Council, so I work with all the EMS providers in our county. I'm also the mother of a little boy that has reactive attachment disorder. So I'm a little bit in both realms here. But I just wanted to, I'm going to put Brian Ritter here with the Chief of Ocean Shores on the spot, that they offered the special ed through the school. They offer them special small fire department tours. And my husband is a firefighter, so my son wasn't that excited about it. But I heard just amazing things from the teachers and the kids, because they got to go in as a small group. They got to meet the firefighters one-on-one. It was really low key, and it was really important to make that connection. And so, you know, and it was great for the kids, and it was great for the firefighters too. I got to know these kids, and hopefully that'll be an ongoing relationship. So I'd say, you know, check out with your schools and the fire departments and see what you can put together.
My name is Brian Ritter. I'm the fire chief of Ocean Shores. I had a brother who was blind growing up, and my wife helps coach Special Olympics swimming right now. My daughters were involved in helping the cheer team. And in my community in the city of Ocean Shores, one of the things that has been really beneficial for us is when a family with somebody who is disabled or has a disability moves into the area. On a few occasions, they brought their child into the firehouse, and we love giving tours anyway because we love our jobs and we like looking at our fire trucks and showing things off, and it's the best job in the world. But we also like meeting these people and their families before the emergency. I know we've hashed over this a million times, but there's a lot of other things that happen in our community that if you pay attention to social media, I know the Department of Emergency Management has a safety fair, a huge safety fair. I know that Starbucks every year puts on kind of a first responders festival where the police and firefighters take over Starbucks. We bring all of our cool trucks. And I know a lot of that might be overstimulating, but any chance you get to make contact with us outside of that emergency, the better. Just so we get an idea of who's in our community. I've come in contact with people children who have autism, and a lot of times those kids have fixations on something, dinosaurs or trucks, or they're really focused on a certain something. So I always ask the parent what their thing is, what they're into, and that way I can start a relationship with that patient and maybe start to talk to them about the thing that they think is the coolest thing in the world, and try to start to bond. And I love Daniel. I see him at Safeway all the time. We have a real special community here, and I'm a little disappointed that it's taken 20 years for us to get in the same room and talk, and I'm really interested in the Cosmopolis liaison. I'm sorry I can't see her name, but I think it would be really nice in the harbor to have somebody that if we have a difficult situation, just like the crisis response teams that we have in Aberdeen, that we can call. And you had mentioned that you know a lot of people with disabilities in the harbor, but if it gets beyond us, we can't leave. We don't want to leave when we want to help, but maybe we don't know how to do that. Depending on the situation. So I don't know if it's something we can explore. I might just put your phone number in my phone and give you a call. So thank you.
So I just had a question and then kind of a follow-up with it. One would be, you guys have a system that would tell you when you go to a person's house if they have disabilities? And if not, would you be interested?
We have a system, a name system, and in the bottom of the name system, we can attach little notes on there. Delana would be probably the best resource to reach out to, and that's who we reach out to.
Yeah, Delana. But yeah, I've been really interested in getting that started and giving like even a book, and then they can enter it in, and then it pops up, and they would know some of the disabilities and challenges our kids have. Or adults. Sorry, I'm talking about my kid.
When you call dispatch, a lot of our organizations use a program called iSpy, and the address comes up in the nature of the call. And so if you tell the dispatcher any kind of special notes about what's going on, what their disability is, that'll pop up on our phones before we get there, so we can kind of get an idea of what's going on.
They give them a rapid contact, just like nonverbal and stuff like that. So I think it would be important to be able to put that in there.
Yep, you can say to my child, a nonverbal child experiencing abdominal pain, and that would come up on our iSpy.
And we read those voraciously, right?
Yes.
2 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, however long it takes to get there, that is exactly what we are.
My name is Dan Baskins. I'm on the board of the ARC, and prior to a sudden death of our executive assistant, she had been doing some research of something that happened out in Clallam County, where because of some unfortunate events and interaction between law enforcement and developing disabled, they set up a formal system through their dispatch, their 911, where those notes were preset, brought in, and there was a lot of work with the developing disabled community to get that information into the system. Having seen the preliminary review of what she was reviewing, they had to go through the prosecuting attorney. They had to make sure that this was legal and within the rights of individuals. But somehow they figured it out, and it's one of the proactive ways of interfering. That's about all I know, and I was kind of hoping that she was working towards it to approach the first responders to help figure out how that can be implemented in Grace Harbor, and if it's even legal to do that. But that was what they have done in Clallam.
In Clallam County, we actually called that program Project Safer.
That'd be more tough.
I would say, regardless of all these are really good. Always let the dispatchers know, because emergencies don't always happen at home. And so just letting us know before we get there. You guys were arriving as soon as you possibly can. I love all the ideas, but just make sure you try and catch us before we jump in there.
So Bob Wilson, Montana
issue that I think it probably ran into initially was probably HIPAA, which prevents us from giving that information out publicly as far as, health information. In the case of emergency response, I don't think that applies. We have a system that we use countywide, it's called Spillman. We have the ability not only to put in, advisories or flags on certain people, but we also have that ability to do it on addresses. Now, I 100% agree with Mitch. The first thing that needs to happen is when you make that call, let us know this is what's going on here. Let us know of any triggers, loud noises, loud sounds, bright lights. We're not going to respond with lights and sirens at that point. If it's an emergency, we're going to try to shut those off just prior to getting to the residents. But if you have the ability, what I would say is, Lana's great for Cosmopolis, Oakland, and Aberdeen to get in contact with and pass on that information. We can try to see if we can get into our Spillman system. As far as the rest of the agencies within the county, police departments, come to the police department. Give us that information, let us know. We will make an entry into the Spillman database that lets us know if we go to this residence, this is what could happen, we could run into, these are the triggers, these are different things. And then we can attach it to a name as well in case we're out in the field and we run into somebody we don't know who they are. And that's the biggest, I think, concern is not so much when we're coming to the home, but when we're out in the field and they're away from the home. Trying to figure out what exactly we're coming in contact with and trying to make that decision relatively quick depending on the circumstances. So I would also say cards are very helpful to let us know, if you have a police officer interaction or a firefighter interaction, have a card on your person to pass that off, gives us that heads up right now. Our police officers are really well trained throughout the county in this type of training as far as DD, and they know what to do. It's just diagnosing the issue upon the initial response. So, if that helps, but that's what I.
I'll feed up Bob real quick too. What he's talking about, the premise history for the address, right? Now, if you guys move from one location, that premise history does not follow the individual, it follows the residence. So say somebody does move to a new location, if you reach out to Delana and update that information for the premise history, that would help us. But as they all said, let us know or let our dispatcher know. Make sure you tell the dispatcher to inform us of the situation of that specific event, what could be the trigger, so we're aware.
Is there a standard card, I think I heard you mention, or something that we could fill out, potentially put in the emergency box at the door in case you need to get in?
I don't think there's a standard card.
So at the fire department, we have cards we can give you. I brought some with me, examples anyway. You fill the paperwork out, place it on your fridge, nice and red. That way we can identify it as well. So the medications, history, contacts, important information. Also a good thing to have is something like that, maybe more detailed history of the patient as well. If it is an emergency, we have to transfer over, we are going fast. Maybe we don't get that full story or retain that full story. So having something that we can take with us to deliver to the hospital as well. And those little cards that I have, I'll give them out here in a minute. That's a good start. If you guys can elaborate on that as well for patient history, anything to help us help further care.
And that's something that would fit like the first responder card in the box. If you need to do an entry where we put the keys, we don't have the box yet.
Probably it's probably still too big, but I can definitely show you and give examples.
And Mitch, I would love a stack of those.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is it advisable to send attach something to our daughter, because we raise our daughter, and she's gonna be getting ready to go out to the workforce, and she's developmentally disabled plus mental health disabled. And when she gets up in the red, she likes to throw things at people, so would it be advisable to put something in her lunchbox or that to let law enforcement know?
I would recommend, as a mom myself, of someone with some behavior health stuff that gets in the red zone, is educate the workforce that is supporting her, right? So that when any of that behavior manifests in the workplace environment, that the responsible party in the workplace can educate whoever the first responder is showing up. Because oftentimes people in the moment of crisis, they're not really thinking in that linear fashion of, I gotta get that card out of the lunchbox so we can get all these things. So you're better off just really educating those people who are gonna be working closest with her. Because I would hope they're gonna have like a support person in that environment, right? Where you're just not thrown into the workplace and go, there you go, do your job, right? I happened to be, when I was hairdressing, I was the first hair salon in Washington State to ever employ anybody with ID. It was very exciting, but I always had that person partnered with a stylist as they were doing their receptionist job. They were never on their own. So make your needs clear to that employer of what to look out for and how to educate any first responders.
I think our most important job by far is we're advocates for patients. That is the number one thing that we can do. Any information that you give us, history, background, that's all stuff that's going to help us be a better advocate. When you think about all the environments that your people, your family, your community are going into, think about those moments of how do you actually enable those folks to be great advocates too. And so whether it's a little card or whether it's how does she know when she's getting into the yellow, what is it that I need to pull out? Do you need to pull out that little binder and have that ready for when you get into the red? I would really love the suggestion of the role play of how would this happen if I'm at work and I'm starting to notice that I'm getting to that level, what should I do? Right? Doing that before it becomes that moment, that's a great time to practice that. And is it always going to go to plan? It's not, right? But is it better chances that it will? Let's practice that chance.
Any more questions?
I just want to say that ARC, they opened a house in Kazi, and our son Daniel is now a resident there. And one of the very positive things that I see coming out of that house, communication, communication, communication. I can't stress that enough. You were just talking about that yourself. The staff call us if there's ever a concern. At Daniel's workplace, they call us. We're his legal guardians, and we will be until we can't be. And so just, and for the officers and first responders, if you recognize somebody and you think maybe they have some challenges, maybe get to know them outside of that crisis. I think that's a really helpful thing. Officer Bailey, is that his name? Nkazi, Nick Bailey? He happened to see my husband and I coming to the house one day, and he started asking us questions. We came to pick up Daniel. He didn't know what the house was. He thought maybe it was a halfway house, or for drug people coming out of recovery or in recovery. And so again, communication, communication, communication. It's critical. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a fabulous discussion. I really appreciate everyone on our panel and all of you for your comments and your questions. The one thing I'm hearing is we need to do this more often, and maybe even having it be a fun event. At the ARC, we really want to get some of these programs, some possibilities, some communicating happening. And so if there are any of you in the law enforcement or in the fire department that would like to be on a team with us so that we can create something, we would love it. Go ahead.
We're also always looking for more board members, so.
So yeah, we would like to have this not be a one-off. We would like to see where we can go from here. I have cards on me today, so if you would like to have my card. So please let us do this again. Thank you so much, and we'll do something